Everybody, hello. I'm coming from you from a very different angle tonight. My name is Kevin McAvey. For those I haven't met, thank you so much for tuning in, and sorry for the delay in getting started. As our world is, sometimes technology doesn't work, but we're going to see how this goes. So on one side here, I have our computer and half of our controls here, and then talking to you straight up from our world's fine iPhone. But we don't want to delay and we don't want to miss tonight because I'm so glad that we have Brett Yarris here to talk about community college and trade school access in Putnam County and in New York. I'm so thrilled that he's here. For those I haven't met, hi. This is not my full-time job, but we're here tonight anyway. My name is Kevin McAvey. I am a Bedford resident, a husband, a father of three who may or may not be in bed right now. I'm a New Yorker born and raised. I'm a tried and true Democrat, good government advocate, and healthcare policy expert, where some of you may have seen me on a couple of other live streams and presentations this week, talking about everything from the importance about primary care in our country to how to build a effective state health data infrastructure. So I'm really happy to. I always every week, every month. Serve the role of helping us better understand the issues we're facing, what their root causes are, and helping us understand how we can get involved and who we want to represent us at all levels of government to help resolve these issues. We want to discuss the issues, we want to foster community, and we want to introduce the candidates. And if you aren't aware, there is a congressional campaign going on right now, which I'm going to talk about for all of 30 seconds today, if only to say we are really lucky to have a number of terrific candidates out there, and I'd encourage you to get to know each and every one of them. You could follow me on social media, you could follow Jen on social media, you can follow Brett on social media. I think everyone, and one of the most amazing things about our democracy and our Democratic Party is that you can find your candidate, get behind them, and really try to convince others through this process that this is the best person to represent our values in Congress and be our nominee. So Beth Davidson, Kate Conley, Effie Phillips Daly, Mike Sachs, John Capello are all in the race to serve as our Democratic nominee for New York 17. Get to know them. They are all terrific folks. And for better and for worse, there are less than 5 weeks left, believe it or not, until the Democratic primary on June 23rd, 2026. But voting even starts before that, as soon as June 13th, less than 5 weeks. And just as a reminder, this will end, and then we move on to the general election season. I know it felt like it's been going on for a long time, but now is the time, if you haven't already, to tune in and get to know our candidates. But for this series, we wanted to really focus on our local candidates and leaders across the district. We've spoken with everyone from Emily to Courtney, Jan. Last week, we've had some really great conversations and a diversity of conversations about the impact issues that you've wanted to hear about. And I'm so glad and pretty amazed to see how many folks have been tuning in to watch the videos live, on recording, and certainly the clips. So thank you all for passing those around and for staying engaged. Today, of course, we're speaking with Brett Yarris. But before we get to him, I would love nothing more than to talk to a dear friend up in Putnam County, who I've known for a fair bit now, believe it or not, Jen Calamonico. Jen first campaigned in 1996's Clinton Gore reelect. She's schooled in organizing and political polling in campaigns across California. She's active in Putnam County Democrats since 2012. She was Carmel town chair from 2014 to 2022, county chair since 2023. She ran on making Putnam more unified, more organized, and more relevant to the campaigns that occur here. And since 2025, she's seen Putnam County Democrats have seen the highest fundraising and the strongest candidate slate that we've seen in a very long time. Last year with candidates on all 6 town ballots. And now she's leading efforts to run competitive races across New York 17 in 2026, including our friend Brett. Jen, it's so nice to see you.
Great to see you too. Thank you for having us on.
Of course, of course. So, Jen, for those who don't know, what does a county Democratic chair do?
Mostly get yelled at on social media. County chair, when I first decided to be county chair, like way too many people said, "Ooh, are you sure you want to do that?" It's a thankless job, but I think it's really, I don't know, at least in Putnam, it's different, right? If you're in Westchester, if you're Susanna Westchester and you have a lot of blue areas, it's a totally different job. When you're in Putnam, you're just trying to take on the fight, and you're just trying to build your brand and build your party and show up. The first couple of things we started doing are like showing up at street fairs, like, "Hi, we're Democrats, we're nice." Like, it's have a cookie, like have a conversation, right? We're your neighbors. So, some of it is just unifying and, knocking on doors, and people say, "Oh, there's no Democrats in my neighborhood." And you say, "No, look, actually, look at these dots. There are Democrats in your neighborhood." So I think really my job has been to be present, to be visible, to give people something to believe in. And then there's the technical parts of the job, which really are to recruit and field candidates and, keep the party thriving. So, it's also unpaid. So
but
it's
yet
an unpaid
also,
full-time job.
Yeah, unpaid. That's what I was going to say. It does seem like it can be all encompassing, not only through the days, but through the weekends as well, with all of the events. And actually, like you mentioned, like finding candidates to run, helping to manage and steward their campaigns, and then supporting them after they get elected while you're kind of building the bench and building the party. And so when we're thinking about this election nationally and locally, what do you think is at stake this year?
Everything. I mean, really, every year we say this is the most important election of our lifetimes, and every year it's kind of true. And this year it certainly is true. I think it's pretty existential. I think with regard to the national election, when you look at the CD17 race, it's pretty existential in the sense that if Democrats don't take back the House, and if Trump, is allowed to go unchecked, it's gotten so much worse than we ever thought it could, and it will only get worse. So I think on that level, it's significant in that way. In terms of local elections and state elections, I think it's really about good government. It's about getting back in the business of delivering for your neighbors, delivering for your community, making government work for people, making government fix problems. And, no party has done a particularly good job at that in the last while. I mean, we've certainly seen a lot of accomplishments in Biden administration and Obama administration. So there's a lot of good things Democrats have done, but people don't believe in government as a help, and they don't believe that government can be part of the solution. So I think that's really kind of what's at stake, because so many things are going so wrong with regards to the economy, with regards to our AI future, with regards to, healthcare, that, electing people who understand the power of government to do good is probably the most important thing we can do this year at all levels.
Yeah. And speaking of all levels, Putnam County, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing the county and those who live there?
Well, I don't want to steal any of Brett's thunder, but I think, when we looked around for so long in Putnam, and I feel like a lot of people who live in Putnam kind of just like, I think there's two groups of people. There's the people that have lived here forever and they just want to keep it the way it was, and they don't want it to change. They don't want it to move forward. It's fine the way it is. You see it, even today, it doesn't need to change. It's fine. And then you have the people who moved here, but like their heads and hearts are still in other places. They're commuting to New
Mhm.
York, or they're here because their kids are in school, but they have life somewhere else. And they're, not a lot of really like investing in what the future of Putnam should be. And I think
Mhm.
that's the moment that we're in. And that's what Brett's really stepping into, is that, a lot more people have moved up here. It's the population has changed. Our population is decreasing, but the population is changing. People moved up during COVID. People have, kind of, you look around and you say, like, why are we not investing in our future here? Why are we letting it stagnate? There's a, there's a property, vacant lot that's been vacant since I moved here 20 years ago. It's been 20 years that lot's been vacant. Like, why?
Mhm.
Why has nobody had the vision? Why has nobody bothered to feel like that's a problem? And we've had one party government for a really long time.
Mhm.
And, that's what happens with one party government. Nobody's looking over your shoulder. You don't really need to worry about that stuff. You're going to get
Yeah.
reelected,
Best
and
best
so
case
it's like the lack of problem solving that is really, I think, what we have to meet that moment differently.
best case scenario, people get comfortable or complacent. They stop listening because they
Yep.
know that it matters a little bit less.
Yeah.
And sometimes those problems can persist and become chronic and just become part of the way it is.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to have new voices in the mix, pushing us, really kind of challenging the status quo and the way we're thinking, which I think brings us to Brett. When you
Absolutely.
first met Brett, what was your first thought that went through your mind?
My very first thought, so we met at the Carmel
Yeah.
Diner, and my very first thought was, wow, this guy's like, is he really a Democrat? Like, this is crazy, right? You think like the stereotype, like,
Yeah.
okay, all right, he's legit.
Uh-huh.
No, my first impression was that he was very sincere in his like passion and motivation to do
Mhm.
good things, right? The first time we met and talking just about how he sees the world and how he
Yeah.
sees what the problems are to solve. Very sincere in being in it
Genuine.
to do, yeah, to do the right thing. He's an extremely gifted communicator. So just the conversation, you start to see how people present themselves. And as you see and have seen, he is a very gifted communicator, which is a little bit important in politics.
A little bit.
Um, and he's just like so darn likable. Like you watch
Mhm.
him talk to people, and he goes into every room. And he's not been a Democrat his whole life, right? He's not
Mhm.
didn't grow up as a political person.
Mhm.
He's just who he is.
Yeah.
And he is somebody who has worked in, service to children, service to families. He's, worked in and around athletes and giving back to people. And so like he's somebody who cares about how other people see the world and experience the world. And that kind of, you understand that about him immediately. He's curious. He asks questions. He's not afraid to walk into any room.
Mhm.
Um, and that's been his, success so far. Republicans like him,
Yeah.
Democrats like him. Like he's somebody
Yeah.
that you feel like, huh, all right, that
He's
guy
a
might that guy might have my back.
Yeah. I mean, he's a small business owner. He understands the importance of fostering an economy and a workforce that
Yeah.
works for everyone. He's, as you mentioned, he's intellectually curious, but not only about what the issues are, but like what's causing them and how to solve them.
Yeah.
He's a good communicator. He's service minded, and I think just going back to something else you said earlier, which really kind of resonated with me when we we're thinking about him, is he's really planted roots in the
Yeah.
community. He
He's
cares.
he's
Mhm.
cares because he's invested in it. It's his
Mhm.
children. He's not even 40 yet. I don't remember
Mhm.
how old he is, but no, he's not even 40 yet.
Yeah.
He is the future of Putnam County.
Mhm.
And so like he's in it because he sees his family and his friends and they need to have something better. There can be better. And that's kind of why we started talking about Putnam is possible, because it's like it's
Mhm.
got to be possible. It has to be
Yeah.
possible because we're invested. We live here and we're invested in it.
It needs to
Um,
be.
and he's also what I've come to see about him in the course of the campaign of starting to work together is he's also extremely hardworking, but he's an executive decision maker, which it's an executive position. You don't really think about those job
Mhm.
skills that transfer. But there's a lot of decision making that needs to happen. And he's run companies. he's managed teams, and you see it with the campaign, like, okay, making the decision, we're doing this, go. And that's kind of decision making is really should be a key job function for somebody for a position that has executive in the title. Somebody who's been an executive is kind of a revolutionary idea.
It is. And it's so important, especially at a time when if you want to make big moves and want to make transformational steps and change the trajectory of a location, of a region, you need to be able to and willing to step up and make some of those hard decisions.
Absolutely.
So if you were going to ask Brett one question, what would you want to ask him?
Oh, goodness. Oh. So unfortunately and unfortunately for him, I've asked him a whole lot of questions.
What do you think others should know about him that I can ask him?
Yeah, no, I think I would ask him, what's the biggest surprise about campaigning? He's been campaigning almost for over a solid year now. What was the biggest surprise or, from what he expected to what life actually was like on the campaign trail?
Well, I'll have to ask him. Jen, it's always wonderful to talk to you and see you. And thank you for setting us up for a conversation with Brett.
Thank you for including Putnam in the conversation. I'm excited for your listeners to meet Brett Yarris. Okay,
talk soon. So with that, let's bring Brett up. Brett, it's really nice to see you. I'm going to publicly embarrass you now by talking a little bit about your background and resume while everyone can watch. Brett is a successful business owner, entrepreneur in sports media and special education consulting. He started his career serving students as a special needs educator and a high school football coach, ultimately turning his passions and academic background in both behavioral science and predictive analytics into a thriving, successful business. Two of those businesses, which he currently operates. Brett grew up in a low-income neighborhood, raised by his hero, a single mother, Diane. She taught him the value of working hard to be better, both for himself and for others. In his upbringing and the community that supported him, it informs his commitments every day for creating a county of neighbors where no one is left behind, and he is not leaving anyone behind through his work as a community leader, as vice chair of the Putnam Soil and Water Conservation District, committee vice president at Friends of Reed Library, a celebrated 40 under 40 trailblazer, a board member of Putnam County Business Council, and I would argue some of the most important jobs of all, a husband and a father of two, and a 17-year resident of Putnam County. Brett, it's so nice to have you on.
Yeah, thank you, man. With that bio, with Jen, do I need to say anything? This is great.
Vote for Brett. Okay? Anything is possible. So I do need to ask you, like, one of the most important things that I'm confronting right now, besides like why the computer isn't working.
Yeah, sure.
Summer is upon us. What are you going to do with your kid?
Yeah, it's the good thing about living in Putnam County, and this is certainly no shade to any of the other counties we have here in New York State. All of many are great, but Putnam is beautiful, and there's a lot of like lake communities. There's a lot of hiking trails. There's a lot of open space, and there's a lot of outdoor stuff to do. For me, the most important thing with our kids, once school's out and summer's here, is just keep them moving. Keep them active. We go swimming in a lot of the lakes, and whether it's out in Cold Spring or in Kent or in Carmel. So Putnam offers all that stuff. And so we try to take advantage of the great things that our county does have. And that's what we'll be doing.
So if folks are tuning in from Westchester or Rockland or Southern Westchester or even Connecticut, if they're looking for a place to go this summer, it sounds like Putnam County is a nice place to visit.
It is. There's a lot. A lot of folks visit Cold Spring, but there's a lot of great things on the eastern side of the county to check out. And these are all things that I've gotten the chance since I spent my entire adult life here, especially in Putnam County, and gotten to see all these things and be a part of it. And that's why we kept our roots here. We put our roots down, and we're raising our family here.
Yeah. What made you decide? So 17 years ago, what made you choose Putnam County, and more importantly, like what made you decide to stay?
That's a pretty easy answer. It's the love of my life. my wife.
That works.
You know, I grew up on Long Island and lived out there for, you know, till I was 18, or 17 actually. I went to college over at
Where on
SUNY
Long Island?
Purchase. Yeah, say again.
Where on Long Island?
Oh yeah, Mastic Beach.
Oh.
Shout out to the Mastic Shirley tri-hamlet out there.
Yeah.
Go Colonials. But yeah, I went to school at Purchase, and when I was 19, I was a sophomore. I met my wife for the first time, and we've literally been together ever since. She's born and raised in Putnam County, Putnam Valley in particular. And when summer was coming from my sophomore year of college, and I had to make the decision about whether or not I'm going to go home or to Long Island or stay up here, you know, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "I don't do long distance relationships, and I'm sure as hell not going to Long Island. So you got to make a decision." And pretty easy decision to stay in Putnam County. So no, it's been amazing, and obviously, like I said, I've not just spent my entire adult life here, but it feels like my life evolved and unfolded right in front of me right here in this county. And it's awesome.
Yeah. So over those 17 years, I assume that you've seen a fair amount change too in Putnam County. What have you seen change for the better, and what have you seen maybe not change for the better, or not change as you'd like it to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the challenge, right? Is that over the 17 years I've been here, Putnam really hasn't changed all that much in terms of a lot of things. And in some ways, that's great. You know, Putnam is a beautiful county. We have great open spaces. We want to protect. We want to preserve those things. But like the biggest change I can think of in Putnam County is there's a supermarket down the road from me here in Carmel that's changed names. It was a Hannaford's, now it's a Tops. Like that's like the biggest change. And now we have these giant empty warehouses up on a hill somewhere that were built in some of the biggest development we've had in Putnam, but 0 hours of local labor was spent building it. Mm-hmm. And I think that encapsulates right there part of the challenge is, you know, we want to preserve and protect the things that make Putnam special, that make us, you know, why we're proud to be the southernmost rural county in New York State. But at the same time, you know, we haven't done enough to continue to grow and to continue to showcase Putnam as a county where you can not just live your life, but where you can build your life. And those are the things that we're looking to attack, you know, hopefully if I'm lucky enough to serve as county executive.
And one of those, as we very much know, and the topic of today's conversation, is making sure that everyone has access, I'm assuming, to pathways to grow in their professional careers and then have successful jobs locally. Yeah. And community colleges, technical education, key cornerstones of that.
Yeah, especially now, right? I mean, in the year 2026, and we're talking about the rise of AI, and we're looking at all these jobs that are being kind of taken by the wayside, and we're seeing the unemployment rate, you know, tick up. These are all things that we need to be concerned about. But why that's especially important here, you know, right, in Putnam, is that we're losing young people at a pretty alarming rate. You look at some of the colleges who have done migration studies of the counties across America, and you look at Putnam County and you say, over the last 10 years, we've lost young people, right? These are people aged, you know, 18 to 30. We've lost these folks, this age demographic, the future of your county. We've lost them among the fastest rates in New York State. And they're not leaving the state, right? A lot of folks will try to blame this on the state itself, but they're going to other counties. That's what the migration studies show us. So the question is, why are we losing them so fast? I think it's the second fastest rate in New York. And the reason is because there's nowhere to live. Can't afford to live here. It's the fourth most expensive county to live in New York State is Putnam County. So our young people can't live here. We don't have any type of higher education presence in the entire county. We're one of the only counties in the entire Hudson Valley that doesn't have a higher education presence. So nowhere to learn, and there's nowhere to work. We don't, you know, we don't do a good job of developing a workforce right here at home. Putnam County for too long has not just outsourced its people, it's outsourced its economy. Right. And so when you look at the fact that we are spending millions of dollars a year out of our county tax dollars to send our kids to other counties to learn, where those counties are now getting the economic impact, we are just not setting ourselves up for success, not just for the now, but for the future. And that makes us a dying county. You can't be that, and you can't be that and be successful. So that's where this comes from. If we're going to look to set ourselves up for the long term, that starts with building pathways for our young people. And it also gives our seniors an opportunity to afford to stay here and to downsize and to feel comfortable staying here. But our seniors aren't able to downsize because they can't afford to sell their homes and then find somewhere else that's going to be cheaper or better or a better fit for them. And so when you are mortgaging your future, you're also hurting your present. You're hurting the folks who have built this county. And that downstream effect, that downward pressure is felt all the way through. And these are the things that, we just have to fix. Otherwise, we're in trouble here.
Yeah. So as a local leader, and most importantly, as a local business owner, like how does that equip you with the knowledge, the information, the experience to be able to step up and help to address some of these issues locally as a county executive?
Well, the first is doing the job and recognizing that it is a job that needs doing. Right. And I'm not trying to be facetious here. I mean, you hear this phrase all the time now in politics, right? I'm not a career politician. I'm not a whatever. Right. And in this case, it happens to be true. I've never been in elected office prior to last year. I have never run for anything. Even when I was in third grade, I didn't run to be the class treasurer, nothing like that. But I have spent my career over the course of now 15 years both in service and in business. And when you do that, you understand that not only is there a job that requires certain skills, but you understand leadership. And I think that's what this county government is missing, is true leadership. It's not my job to know every answer. It's not my job to be the expert in every single thing that comes up. That's not what leadership is. And I think a lot of folks try to be the smartest person in the room all the time. And while I would like to be that, and I try to be that, I'm always trying to be well-learned and well-read on all the issues. You also got to find people who know how to do the very specific things, whether it's the planning department, DPW, finance. You've got to find people. And then what being a leader is making sure your entire team has everything they need to do their jobs to the best of their ability for the people who live in your county. And that's what we're going to look to bring to the table. We're going to maximize the efficiency of what government can be. And that doesn't mean I get in and all of a sudden I'm looking to, okay, now I got to start my next campaign, time to run for this or time to run for that. Got to get in the photo op, got to make sure I put out a press release. Being a county executive is a job that requires skills, and it's a job that needs to be done. It cannot be a placeholder. You can't be in this job just to get your picture.
To waste up. Yeah,
that's it. Right. And so for too long, I just don't think that that's been our focus. I don't think doing the job of county executive has been the focus. And we see that in the lack of growth. We see that in the lack of vision, the lack of big thinking. Putnam might be small, but we got to start thinking big and dreaming big. And we're going to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's really appealing right now as folks are looking for something different to help resolve issues that don't get resolved election after election after election. But what's really interesting to me is for folks who haven't been involved in the political world, what makes them all of a sudden say, now is the time when I need to step up and get involved? Do you remember what that was for you 2 years ago when you decided to kind of step into the political arena, and now in running for county executive to really put your business experience and leadership experience to use?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think a lot of us, especially in that COVID time period, whether it was political stuff, whether it was just the feeling of dread and doom that was sort of, had us all, kind of circling the drain a bit. When you're feeling that way, you're looking for a way out. You're looking for change. You're looking for something to kind of disrupt that feeling for you. And at that point, living in Carmel where I live now, I got very close to my neighbors. And my neighbors are Republicans. My neighbors are conservatives. They're independents. They're libertarians. And I'm a Democrat. But when we got together and we would sit down and we would talk, and we would all complain about the same things. Right? We didn't say, oh, no, you're a Republican. That's a Republican problem that you have. Or, no, you're a Democrat. It's a Democrat problem that you have. No, we're all pissed off about the lack of local business, the lack of, or the increase in storefront vacancies that we have in our towns, right? We're all frustrated with the lack of opportunity for our kids. We all have kids around the same age. I have a 10-year-old daughter. I don't have 30 years for this county to get it figured out. I got about 8 years to convince her that you can build your life and launch it right here from home, or that this is a home that you're going to want to come back to. And so when you asked me what it is that kind of led me to kind of get to here where we are now, it was those initial conversations with my neighbors, not politics, not, all the different things. It was looking at our homes, looking at our neighborhoods, looking at our communities, connecting with my neighbors, and realizing, what, we have a lot of the same challenges. We have a lot of the same things we want to see be different. And if we work together, we can make that difference. And so I'm the one that got nominated to run, apparently. That's what a couple of beers and a bad Knicks game will do to you. But here we are. And by the way, not a bad Knicks game. Hopefully, game 2 is tonight.
I mean, I feel like you and the Knicks are on the upswing here.
Doing it up. But that's what it was. And then Kevin, just to put a button on this.
Yeah.
Once I made the decision to run, as I got involved, as I started running, once I ran, I was like, okay, I can't just run. I got to be educated. I got to understand what county government is. I got to understand how I can make the biggest difference inside of county government. What is the role of county executive, right? It's not a lot of these national issues that you talk about. There's very specific things in county government that we have to do. And the more I learned, the more I got involved, the more I saw what was wrong, the more I saw what was missing. I just continued to get more and more motivated to keep going. And here we are, and we're going to see this thing through all the way to November.
So before I ask you Jen's question, Putnam is possible.
Yeah. Yes,
what does that mean? What does that mean to you?
One of the things that I learned the most as I was campaigning, as I've been campaigning, I've knocked on close to 10,000 doors already. It's about 10% of the entire county over the last year. More than 10% of the entire county over the last year. And one of the things that and we're not talking just Democrats, we're talking Democrats, Republicans, you name it. Okay. It's a reason why I've been endorsed by multiple parties. The Libertarians endorsed me just recently here in Putnam County. And when you go to the doors and you listen, what I've been so surprised about is everybody's feeling the same pressures. Everybody's feeling the same sense of we need to do something different. No one person can put their finger on what that thing is. But when we bring them our vision and we bring them our ideas, they're ready to get on board. They don't ask about party. They don't ask about who you voted for in the last election. They go, yeah, my son's 24, 25 years old, can't find a job. He's looking to leave Putnam County. Or I met somebody, honest to God, 70 years old, came out of their house, talked to him, said, my kids moved out of Putnam County 25, 30 years ago. I haven't, we see each other for the holidays. These are the things that we're trying to work on.
So, biggest surprise when you're out on the campaign trail, the thing that you didn't expect when running for county executive that really shook you up a little bit?
Well, the first thing is that I'd have to reintroduce myself to my kids every night because I don't see them.
It's a full-time job to run for office.
It is, and it's for them, and they get it. Especially my 10-year-old. She understands. She tries to come to every event with me, and I always remind her, you're going to get bored after 15 minutes, but yeah, sure, let's go. But no, the thing that I think surprised me the most was kind of what I was just talking about was how when I would knock on Republican doors, or I would go into what we affectionately in Putnam County call Republican spaces, right? Things that what I was really surprised of, because this wasn't my experience with my neighbors, where we had all different political backgrounds, but we were happy to be in each other's company. What I was surprised about was how segregated we've become in Putnam. Where there were bars that are Republican bars, and there's events that are Democratic events or Republican events, and no one sort of commingled. And I've spent the last year trying to change that, much to the chagrin of different people, especially the Republicans. They put new laws into their committee bylaws to stop people from taking pictures with me. That's a true story. You can look that up. But the thing that surprises me is in terms of the party infrastructure, how much folks are willing to be segregated. Yeah. How much they're willing to not spend time with each other. And I'm trying to break that down. I'm trying to introduce myself and say to folks, hey, you may have an idea of what I am because of the letter next to my name, But let's talk, because I think if we talk, you're going to find that we want the same things. You're going to find that we have some of the same challenges right here at home. And we can fix that, and we can do that together. We can move forward and build a county that we can be proud of, our kids can be proud of, our grandparents can be proud of, right? These are things that we can do to bring folks together. And I think that's got to be the way forward. And it's certainly what I want to bring here to Putnam.
So if people want to get involved, if people believe, I hope they are, I don't see how you can't after hearing this, that something different is possible. If they want to get involved in your campaign, how do they do that?
Yeah, I mean, you named the first thing is starting to believe, right? Because the question was, what does Putnam Possible mean to me, right? And that's it. It's that we can do this together. It's that there are big ways, big thinking, big dreams that we can have. And so the first thing to make Putnam possible is to believe that it can actually happen. But the next part is to sign up and help volunteer for the campaign. We have a lot of volunteer opportunities, whether it's out canvassing, whether it's making phone calls, whether it's helping fundraise. These are all things that we need to do. For folks at home, whether you're in Putnam County or elsewhere and watching and want to see, real good folks, kind of come together as neighbors. We are going up against an institutional machine. Some people call it, Club Putnam or the Mayapack machine, whatever they call them. I don't know what they call themselves, but we're going up against an institutional machine. It's a machine that's been rooted in government for a very long time. Okay. And we're going up against that. And they started with like 6 figures in cash on hand when I started with 0. And so these are the things that we need to do in order to really compete, get the message out there. The other thing is I'm going against an incumbent, and I don't have the bully pulpit. I don't get to go to events and disguise it up as I'm the county executive, but give a campaign speech. I don't get to do those things. And so the best way to help is join the team, help us get our message out there, help us raise money, support this message, because it's a new message, it's a new day, it's a new vision for Putnam County, and that is how we make Putnam possible.
That's how we do it. Yarrisforputnam.com. You're on Instagram and social media. I encourage folks to check it out. It's always really inspiring. And again, as Jen mentioned at the top, you communicate in a way that really kind of breaks down some complicated problems and really makes us understand that making some key decisions are essential to change. So thank you for all that you're doing, for running. It was great to talk to you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Hopefully it's not the last time. Hopefully we get to do this again, huh?
Sounds good.
All right, man.
Talk soon. So with that, once again, Brett Yarris, amazing. He's running for county executive, and I think it's going to be a very interesting year as candidates go up against long-term historical party machinery. You'll see lots of funny things happen when the party in power starts to see cracks in the ice. And I do think that there's a pretty big thaw going on in Putnam County. Again, Brett Yarris, thank you so much for joining. And we are not done. Over the course of the next few weeks, we have Eric Marmon next week from the town of Newcastle to talk about what residents want and how, as a town board member, he's seeking to solve them. Tom Abinati from the town of Mount Pleasant, advocating for people with disabilities in his potential role in the town and from his long history of service. And then finally, we'll close out with Sam Banerjee talking about preventing the crisis of stillbirth, a crisis that affects us locally, a crisis that affects us nationally, and we're all going to get smarter thanks to her. So again, next week, I hope to see you all with Eric. I'm Kevin from a different angle, but thanks for bearing with me and for joining tonight. It's always great to see you, and thank you for the opportunity to interview so many of our local leaders and congressional candidates across the district. This is how we make change. Understand the issues, know the candidates, and get out and vote. Have a great night, everybody.